Welcome, everyone, to episode 132 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, the worm that eats away at all of your beauty from the inside. And I'm coming to you, as always, from Brooklyn, New York. But no, I am not the only rat-like creature who is dwelling in this gothic castle. No, who else is here with me?
Well, it's me, Steve Guntley, and I have one rule and one rule only, and that is never leave a wet dame out in the hall. This is the podcast about mousetrap roses, handsy ghosts, and Labubu Ratmen. That's because this is the podcast about Pulse Pounders, a long-lost Empire anthology film that gives us one last little taste of some of our favorite Full Moon and Empire characters and fixtures behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and bringing back some great characters as well. And we are very excited to be talking about this movie because it's a strange case. It's got a lot of unusual backstory to it, and we've got a very, very cool person here joining us to sort that out. Who is joining us today?
Yes. Well, I was looking around for potential people to be guests for this episode, and I thought, all right, let me look for other podcasters. Maybe they know more information about this movie than we do. Let me look for some film journalists and people who have a passion for horror movies. And then I found somebody who has a passion also for film scores. And I was like, oh my God, it's a kindred spirit. It's Rachel Reeves. And, she's written for Dread Central and Bloody Disgusting. You can hear her on the Losers Club, Stephen King podcast, Halloweenies, of course, and The Girls on the Boys. And Rachel, we're super excited to have you. Been a fan of your stuff for a while now, so thanks for taking the time.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with you guys and talk about this just odd nugget of a movie, which I, to be totally transparent, had never heard of before. So I'm flattered that you're looking for an expert who might know more about these movies, but I'm going to defer to you for the most part on this one.
Totally fair. I was curious if this is one that you chose or if this was a spinning of the wheel. So it seems like you spun the wheel a little bit on this one.
Well, I spun the wheel, but what got me, and I'm sure we'll get into it, is this cast. And once I knew more about it, once I Jared was like, here's some fun ones. And I looked into it, I was like, oh yeah, I've never heard of this. I have to know more. I have to know everything.
Right.
And there's some stuff to know about this and a lot that we don't know, which I also think is fascinating. So very excited to talk about all three of these segments in this weird little movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When we say that Rachel spun the wheel, really what happened was I sent her, some screenshots of a spreadsheet, but then I made some follow-up attempts where I was just like, hey, this thing called Pulse Pounders is out there and no one's been picking it. By the way, I'm glad you're interested in being on the show. Have I mentioned Pulse Pounders to you yet? I really was pushing for this one. I think more than anything also, it was that I just also wanted to cover it too, because any excuse that we get to go back to this particular, or I should say these particular ensembles are very welcome, because a lot of these people have become sort of the patron saints of this podcast.
Yeah.
And we're collecting them here like Pokemon in one episode, all in the same very weird movie. And what I like about it too is that, there's some of it that's available now. For a long time, none of it was really available at all.
Yeah.
But it's an oddity. I think we called it an odd nugget, which is a great description. I think we cover lots of odd nuggets on this show for sure. And what I love about that is, even though it's a super obscure and super odd in those ways, it has all of the hallmarks of a classic Charles Band ambition.
Yeah.
It's the perfect. It's wild to me that we don't have the 90-minute with wraparound out there to the world by this point.
Yeah.
I mean, the Primeval's made it out. Why can't this one?
Yeah. Sometimes they escape from this kind of production hell that they find themselves in. Well, let's learn a little bit about just what the hell Pulse Pounders is, because this movie was never released. I was going to give a release date. Usually that's when I start things off, but no, this is an unusual case because this is a film that almost did not exist in any form. And I guess technically it doesn't really exist in its intended form. So we talk a lot about when Empire collapsed back in the late 80s. Most of the catalog after that was sold off to MGM, and then a lot of those movies were released, kind of trickled out over the next couple of years. Some of them really never made it out of, or made it off the shelf from that point. But Pulse Pounders is one of the few movies that was just canceled outright, and it was already done. You know, it was done, it was packaged, it was ready to go. They were just kind of in post-production stuff with it, but it was just sort of had the misfortune to arrive at the exact wrong time. It was being put together right as everything sort of fell apart. And the 35 millimeter film print of this, which was shot in 1987, was lost entirely. So we will never likely ever see this movie in its intended form. However, in 2011, Charles Band uncovered VHS work prints of 2 of the 3 short films. So we should say Pulse Pounders is an anthology movie that's bringing together 3 different projects, 2 of which are kind of recircling or like revisiting some established Empire properties at this point. And then one of them is just sort of a spiritual successor to some of the work that he did with Stuart Gordon and some of the Lovecraftian stuff. So what we get here are The Evil Clergyman. That's an adaptation of a H.P. Lovecraft short film. You get Trancers, City of Angels, which is kind of a little interrogative like story in between Trancers 1 and 2. And then we get Dungeon Master Sorcerer's Nightmare, which is, again, an anthology film inside an anthology film, kind of anthology Easter egging it here. But yeah, the Dungeon Master was like a sort of a mini anthology film of its own kind of style. We do know, so here's the problem with this. The Dungeon Master sequence is gone forever. That's one that we were looking for. We were tapping into all of our different channels, contacting people, and this just does not exist at all anymore. All we really know about it, we know that Richard Mole and Jeffrey Byron were both reprising their parts in it. And that's really kind of all I know.
They're the only 2 that are credited.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me wonder if it was a 2-hander. Like the funny thing about it was I finally got to a point where I just gave up and went, all right, I have to accept the fact that this thing's lost forever. I almost texted Jeffrey Byron.
Yeah.
I almost
just to say, do you
him,
have it? Yeah.
Yeah, just to be like, yeah, by the way, like, you're not hoarding like a hidden copy of this thing, are you? Like, I mean, I don't know how he would have gotten it to us in time anyway, but if anything, maybe he could have shed some light on it. And we covered the Dungeon Master in, I think, January of 2024 with Jeffrey Byron on that show. I can't remember if he explicitly talked about stuff that they did for the Dungeon Master sequel that was intended for Pulse Pounders. It might have been brought up anecdotally. I almost went back and listened to it again to see if he did shed some light on that, but I don't really think he did. I think he talked more about the Metal Storm production leading into the original Dungeon Master and how he got that role. But I almost reached out to him to be like, can you tell us anything about this? But then I thought about it more and I was like, no, you know what? Like, it's fun sometimes to speculate, and it's fun to not know these things and to be like, this there's a trailer, or what was cut into like a minute 40 trailer of footage from this, which I think is all that exists in the world. And I think the only people you see in it are Richard Mall and Jeffrey Byron.
Yeah.
So to my knowledge, because everyone else, we talk about the production and listing the cast and stuff like that. Everybody else in all of the Pulse Pounder stuff is credited, even like Bilson and DeMeo and all of those people. And for the Dungeon Master one, yeah, it's not even like archived. It's not even talked about much. It's really fascinating to me that is gone essentially forever.
Right. Yeah.
And even like the plot, that's what I was wondering, because I couldn't find anything about what even the general idea of this was, and if anybody's talked about it or seen it. Like, there's just a mystery. Yeah, unless somebody who was actually in it was like, oh yeah, I guess it kind of was a story about this, but that's it. That's just wild to me.
And it's likely they don't have even like clear memories of shooting that. You know, it's just like a
Yeah.
very short little kind of one-off thing.
Yeah.
There is a poster for Pulse Pounders that you can see. Like it got
Mhm.
far enough along that they released a poster for it, advertising the 3 segments, and we see a little bit of like the Dungeon Master, like with his, you know, popping out of this cool cube thing, you know. So the 2 that were eventually recovered were the Evil Clergyman and the Trancers City of Angels. Now, Trancers, when this came out, or when this was intended to come out, this segment was just going to be called Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Death. Of course, they would eventually just take that title and make it the name of the proper sequel. So when the Trancers segment was released, it was renamed as City of Angels, and sometimes it's called Trancers 1.5.
It is Trancers 1.5.
Yeah. So, but these were found. The VHS prints were found in 2011. They are never going to be cinematic quality. Just based on what they were able to restore. These are work prints. They didn't even have audio ready for the Evil Clergyman segment, so they went back and redubbed it and kind of gave it a new score and gave it. You know, they polished these up as much as they could, you know, but you are still working with a 40-year-old VHS work print. So
one of my favorite approaches they took for the Evil Clergyman was they went and did that thing they do when they're putting out an existing property again, which is they gave it like a 3-minute credit sequence.
yes, yeah,
It was like, we'll just throw, you know, with some nice kind of soothing orchestral music, you know, kind of sweeping music, and you get the credits sequence in there. And then that is so obviously done after.
Yeah.
Then when it does then cut to the beginning of the actual stuff, it's like, yeah, it's almost like when you watch a special feature and you're watching like behind the scenes footage of a movie being made. It's like very, very much VHS quality, which I have no problem with. I mean, in doing the show, we obviously watch a lot of movies that were well, I guess intended for release on video, a few that were shot on video.
yeah.
And to me, like, that aesthetic is, you know, obviously not the most artistically satisfying aesthetic, but it's when you have the people behind that one, it really it tends to transcend the medium a little bit there.
Yeah.
There's a charm there that I find really comforting in a you know a way that ages me a little bit, I guess, but that's okay.
No,
Also,
I'm with you. Yeah.
like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen New York Ninja, but it gave me that kind of vibes too, because obviously a similar situation. It was assembled much, much later and redubbed and kind of pieced together. So there's like this weird out of timeness where part of it feels so new because, well, it is. And then the other part that feels like, oh yeah, this is actually period. So I thought that was kind of fun to be like, oh yeah, okay, I see what's going on here.
It's kind of a archaeological dig of a
Yeah.
sport. You know, we're looking at a relic that was never supposed to be seen, and it feels kind of cool in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these were found in 2011. Evil Clergyman was given a DVD release in 2012, and then the Trancers movie was given one in 2013. So you can watch them both. They are on Tubi, they're on Prime, they're easy to watch. They're both about 25 minutes each, with 30 with credits. And so let's break them down. Let's talk about The Evil Clergyman. That's the one that came out first. It was released in 2012. It was directed by Charles Band, written by Dennis Paoli, and it stars Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, David Warner, David Gale, and Una Brandon Jones. So last week, I think of the teaser, I misidentified this as a Stuart Gordon film. It is not. It is a Charles Band film, but it is 1,000% drafting off of Stuart Gordon's work, including bringing back almost an entire cast from Reanimator and From Beyond, and putting them in a new H.P. Lovecraft story. Now, this, interestingly, is not even based on a story, quote unquote. I looked this up. It is actually based on an excerpt from a letter that H.P. Lovecraft sent to a friend of his describing a dream he had. So you can read this entire short story. It's maybe a page long. It doesn't super resemble what we see in the movie. It's a pretty loose adaptation. But yeah, so this is not a Stuart Gordon film, but we do get Jeffrey Combs and we get Barbara Crampton and we get David Gale somehow doing something weirder than what he did in Reanimator. I kind of spat my drink a little bit when he first entered the scene here. I'm like, oh, okay, this is who he's playing in this.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing a little rat man, and my first note was that, like, literally, is this a Labubu? because this is what it looks like.
Is this
to me.
where it came from? This is where they spawned out of? Somebody saw this? And
I'm
like,
guessing
"Got it."
this. Somebody saw this. They saw a little horrible human face on a little fuzzy rat monster, and they're like, I could see Jeffrey Combs making out with this. Yeah, why not?
I don't know when I'll ever have the opportunity to ask this again, but my cultural knowledge of what a Labubu is very limited.
Yeah, mine too.
Do they all have like monster teeth?
Yes.
I don't actually know. Yeah, I just know they're little bunnies with human faces, right? Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Little monster, like little monster devil bunnies.
There was a little Rachel, you talked about something aging you. I was gonna say they were like little monchichis with sharp teeth.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Oh God. That just opened up something. Yeah. Jesus, I haven't thought about.
Well, there's like
years.
and there's something a little My Pet Monster in that design too.
Yeah. So
you're welcome, everyone.
Oh yeah. I had a My Pet Monster. Those are great. The little chains. You're trying to cuddle with it, but it's got the chains that are always like bumping you in the night. Yeah. So this is a very strange little film. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly what's going on. It opens with Barbara showing up at this old castle. Can you believe that Charles Band shot a movie in a castle? It's crazy. It's like,
I can't, this is the second time my flabbers have been gasted in this recording. One was you telling me that, and the other was that Pulse Pounders was a poster first.
Yeah, right. Incredible. Neither of which are in keeping with anything. And I was going to say, like, this must have been shot in his castle in Rome, but like, did he have it at this point? I think he did.
That was going to be my question to you, because I was
so.
like, I knew about the castle, but I'm not familiar with when that kind of came into the picture. And I was like, oh, this clearly is shot in his castle. But
I think the Italian castle is from about 86 to 88 or so. And then I think it changes kind of with the advent of Full Moon to the Romanian studio around.
Well, no, he kept his Italian castle because Castle Freaks was shot there, or Castle Freak was shot there. So
you're right.
He kept the Italian castle.
Yes, I'm behind a little bit. The Romanian studio, I think, came later, maybe towards the end of the Paramount deal.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little my dates wrong.
Yeah, when this was shot, they still would have been operating out of Rome. So like they still had the old Dino Chita studios. So like, yeah, this could have been that. There was a fun, like, I don't know, something about the low quality of the VHS work print. When I first saw this, the thing that immediately popped into my head, and I don't know if this is going to ping anyone for anyone else, but it made me think of the old video game, The Seventh Guest. Do you remember those early like FMV video games where they get like live actors walking onto like a fake looking backdrop? Something about the sound quality and the video quality of that made me think I was playing one of those old games.
I don't disagree based on what I know about video games from a long time ago, which is not a lot outside of the little experience I had playing them in the late 80s. So you said a bunch of words and acronyms. I don't really know what they mean.
Full motion video as FMV. That's when in the early days of CD-ROM technology, they're like, oh, obviously we want to put like human beings on this postage stamp size 1p resolution video. And obviously, they're going to be the worst actors you've ever seen in your life, and they're going to explain the plot to you. And this is the wave of the future. So there was about a 5-year period there where, a lot of people were getting employed making these terrible games, and that's what this kind of gave me a little bit right at the beginning. But we get Barbara meeting the
personally. I personally didn't have that experience, but Rachel, maybe you'll resonate a little more with what I'm saying now about how I felt watching this. Was that, and I've said this before, I think it was for Witch House and it was probably for Sideshow and a few other things. There is an aesthetic of VHS quality stuff that makes me feel very nostalgic for things that I like taped off of basic cable when I was a kid, and like, there's some weird Halloween themed movie that's on ABC Family. I'm going to pop in a VHS and record that, and then watched it a bunch of times until the tracking was all kind of fucked up and like the picture was jumping a little bit. And so we've watched a few movies on the show where I have got that really warm aesthetic of like, okay, it's 1997. I'm a teenager doing my homework. I'm sitting on my bedroom floor of my parents' house on the carpet. I'm watching the TV in my bedroom. The tracking is jumping. The picture looks like shit. The audio is terrible. But you know what? I didn't know of anything going on in the world in 2025, so I was happy.
Yeah,
hey.
no, totally. It reminded me also kind of like the Are You Afraid of the Dark sort of vibe, or like the Friday the 13th TV series where like it has that kind of aesthetic that I'm just lack of a better word, but cheap a little bit, where it feels like, and just how it kind of feels like an episode of TV. And I mean that with all the love in the world, because both of those shows, yeah, maybe they don't hold up super great in terms of like the quality of the execution all the time, but there's something just so endearing about that. And I definitely got this from the sequence. However, note, not safe for children, not safe for work. This
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 movie
segment.
is pretty fucked up. I can appreciate that even though Stuart Gordon isn't directing this, I think Charles Band is really leaning into the kinky, grimy aesthetic of a Stuart Gordon movie. Like this is pretty raw for what it's trying to do.
You're totally right.
Yeah, it's very hallucinogenic. It's very kind of like dream logic, but Barbara is just like stuck in this attic after meeting the meanest housekeeper in the world. He's just like stuck in this attic with the ghost of her dead lover, played by Jeffrey Combs, who is maybe still alive and manipulating her. And then he's got this little like familiar, this little like man, this little foul-mouthed man who's like his face, a human face, a rat body. And he's just constantly like swearing and saying some fucked up shit. And this is David Gale from Reanimator.
Between Reanimator and Bride of Reanimator and this, I just love the lengths that David Gale will allow directors to send him.
Yeah.
It's insane. I did wonder. I'm like, what do these people have on him? Like, why is he doing this? But maybe he's just like, yeah, that sounds fun. Sure.
He's just
why
a good-natured guy. We had Barbara Crampton on the show a couple months ago, and she had nothing but kind words to say about David Gale and saying he was just a sweetheart. But he's really going for it here. And I kept feeling a little, I don't know, the secondhand awkwardness of watching the love scenes between Jeffrey and Barbara, just because I know they are very dear friends in real life, and like just the prospect of getting like that handsy and that familiar with each other on camera must have been like a little awkward for both of them, I imagine. So
maybe, but at the same time, it's like they've worked together so many times and had intimacy of various sorts and kinds, like in all of these projects. And it's like, well, if I've got to do this with somebody, all right, sure, it's just all right, great. Like I know we're
somebody you
trust.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and also, Steve, you talked about how this has the spirit of Stuart Gordon. I mean, we said last time that this was a Stuart Gordon, and we both kind of just accepted that, and then realized after the fact, oh wait, no, Charles Band directed this, but it has that Stuart Gordon spirit to it.
Well, it's Lovecraft, right? And obviously,
exactly.
Done so many adaptations of that,
right? And also, when you bring this same main ensemble back together, I think generally this one is, while mostly forgotten, is sort of thought about in the same breath as Reanimator and From Beyond and Castle Freak. I remember talking to Barbara about stuff we were doing for the show and mentioning something about the Evil Clergyman, and she was like, oh, have you done that yet? And I was like, no, not yet, because we got to figure out where it's going to fit in, if we're going to try to do Pulse Pounders as a thing or whatever. And she seemed to have generally fond things to say about it, in terms of like, I'm paraphrasing, but maybe it's kind of a shame that it's so hard to find. But I think, it's just another in the collaborations between her, Jeffrey, Dennis Paoli, also, who's behind all of those.
Mac Allberg shot it. Richard Band did the soundtrack. John Carl Buechler did the special effects. Like they're really, it's so nice to see all these names too, because many of them are gone now as well. And it's just like, it's always nice when we get to go back and like see kind of this unearthed thing. We had the same kind of experience with Cutter's Club when that was finally released. It's just like, oh, it's cool. We're seeing all these homies who are gone, unfortunately. Is this okay? There must have been another David Warner performance that we've caught on this show, right? This can't be the first David Warner we've gotten, is it?
I think this is the introduction of David Warner to our show, shockingly.
Shockingly, because that's a guy, man, he's kind of in the David Gale vein, where like he shows up in a lot of kind of like low budget genre stuff, and he just classes the joint up every single time. That's a guy who's just so locked in and just like so good, and like he never makes you feel like you're watching a low budget anything, because he's showing up and giving an excellent performance. I mean, everything from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 to Quest for the Delta Knights to everything like that. Like he just pops up and kills it. And he's only in this very briefly, but I think he's great. And genuinely, Barbara is really fucking good in this little short. Like she is committing, and she is really awesome. Like, and most of the short is just her, we're just kind of like living with her character the entire time. And no, she's really committed and really good. It makes this feel very unsettling.
Yeah. I just want to say about David Warner. He's been in a ton of amazing stuff. It's weird we haven't talked about him yet. We may have anecdotally mentioned his name before at some point, because he's still, to this day, for my money, the victim of the greatest on-screen decapitation of all time.
The Omen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, he was phenomenal. We lost him in 2022. But yeah, I'm gonna try and dig through his filmography and see if there's another time that we may have come across him, because that is wild to me that it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal. And it's kind of a hard movie to describe in a lot of ways. Like it has this kind of brown paper bag sort of vibe to it. It feels kind of like this little cursed object in a way. Maybe just the fact that it's being unearthed, and maybe the fact that it's just only available in this kind of low quality VHS print. I had this real disconnect when the rat thing finally like came on screen, and I'm just like, wait, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, in the old days when on the VHS quality stuff where you had to kind of like squint to make sure that like what you were seeing is real. It's an experience I had watching Alien for the first time, when I had it on like a VHS copy when I was a young kid, and I was like not sure that what I was seeing was what I was seeing, like when they go into the ship for the first time and stuff like that. That was kind of a feeling I got here, where I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I'm really looking at this. Like it took me a second for my brain to catch up.
Alien's also dark as shit.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, good.
This is like so dreamy, and it makes sense because that's what it is based off of. So regardless of whether or not the actual unfolding of the story is super true to this Lovecraftian dream, it feels very dreamy. And I think it's good. I mean, a lot of it's just dialogue too. There's a little bit of action. We get that sort of sex scene between them, and then there's a few minor, but most of it's happening in one room. Like it feels like a play almost, and a lot of just interaction between these characters, but also trying to figure out like, wait, what's going on?
Right.
So he killed himself, but didn't. And this thing is just familiar, and he's been taking the souls of these other women in other situations. And I'm still not entirely sure exactly what happens, but Jeffrey Combs he's a bad man in this.
Yeah.
But like devilishly
like
so.
Of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
he definitely is evil.
Mhm.
And I love how just committed he is to being this evil character. Like there's no moment where you're like, well, maybe he is, maybe he is. No, he's evil 100%. And nobody gives that kind of just gleeful evil like Jeffrey Combs, which is what I love. And I love that we get to see this here, where it doesn't feel like anybody's phoning this in, regardless of whether or not it was just like a really quick little shoot and little short that was just going to be an anthology. It definitely feels like, okay, all of these people they're clocking in.
Yeah.
And I love that, because you've seen some stuff with people like David Warner's caliber where it's like, okay, clearly you just needed the check because you do not want to be here.
Right.
Here's your problem. Somebody turned Jeffrey Combs to evil.
Gotta be careful that switch.
Nobody's phoning it in this, which I appreciate, because it's very apparent narratively that we're stretching something that is an amalgam of different Lovecraftian things, but also a source material that is either really ambiguous itself or very short, like one page of a letter. And so, narratively, it can be a bit unsatisfying. To me, I think where this thing really works is just sort of the vibes, the feel of it. I think it has like the perfect feel. I think it doesn't even really have to make sense. It's like events are happening, and because of the dreamlike nature of it, you're just like, okay, like
Exactly.
that's happening. Cool. That's also happening. Love it. Like, and it's just it's to the point where it almost just feels like a hangout. It's like we're getting Barbara and Jeffrey together. We're gonna bring, David Gale's gonna do this wild thing. David Warner's gonna come in and just be there for a day, probably shooting, and we're just getting everybody back together. And I mean, it is very indicative of a Charles Band directed thing because there's a lot of dialogue. It's a very exposition heavy. But again, it's like the sort of it's like a stream of consciousness, lack of cohesion that almost works in its favor, because it's such, for this being a piece of a mostly forgotten, unavailable, unfinished whole product, it has that feeling itself too, which I think is appropriate. Like, it feels kind of oddly unfinished, and I think if it were more polished, it wouldn't vibe as much with the whole aesthetic of what Pulse Pounders as this odd nugget really is. I think it's perfect for it in that way.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to talk about our other little segment that survived here. And this is called Trancers 1.5 City of Angels. And this is, of course, directed by Charles Band. It's written by Paul DeMeo and Danny Bilson. And it stars Tim Thomerson, Helen Hunt, Art LaFleur, Thelma Hopkins, Grace Zabriskie, and Velvet Rhodes. That's right. We got the whole crew back from the Trancers universe, which was really nice to see. I was surprised at how many people they were able to get in here for what was a very small shoot. This one was eventually released on video on October 22nd, 2013. So yeah, like I said, the original title was going to be Trancers 2 Return of Jack Death. They wound up using that again for the actual proper sequel when that came out in 1993. Yeah, it was retitled as City of Angels. This is another very, very rough print. It looks very rough, and you just have to kind of like accept that. I think they don't really restore the sound quality in this one as well as they did with Evil Clergyman. So this definitely feels like something that was dubbed off of TV. Rachel, how familiar were you with the Trancers universe before coming into this one?
I have seen a few of them, but to be honest, I didn't realize how many Trancers sequels there are until I looked it up and was like, oh, so clearly have some work to do when it comes to Trancers, but I love this kind of shit. I love this sci-fi ridiculous stuff. I mean, Jack Death has to be one of the coolest names to ever exist.
It's so funny.
Like every time I hear it, it just is so stupid. It feels like an 8-year-old boy wrote it, and I love that. Like, oh yeah, this is my time traveling cop character. His name's Jack Death. Yeah, and it's like I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And so every time I see him and they say it, I can never take it seriously, but in like a really fun way where it brings out like this child joy and be like, oh, this is so stupid. I love it.
Yeah,
it reminds me of like in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt when Titus is trying to come up with a straight person's name, and he uses the name Cork Rockingham.
Cork Rockingham.
So exactly, like it has this in like Trancers. I feel like it's kind of in the same universe where it's playing with other bigger ideas, and obviously, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys. This is something that Band does so many times. Like, oh, that's a cool idea that somebody else did on a bigger scale, on a bigger budget. I'm going to take that idea and sort of hitch my wagon to that a little bit. So it definitely, like Megaforce, I feel like has like the same kind of energy as like the Trancers universe. And I feel like, they're playing with, I would assume Terminator in a way. Like
you would think that, but
yeah, well, what's it?
The first one predated the original Terminator by like a matter of weeks, and like, so it kind of, I think this was one of those rare cases of just kind of like parallel thinking, because
Yeah.
Terminator wouldn't really have been like that was kind of a sleeper hit. Nobody really saw Terminator being as big a deal as it would become.
Right,
So I
certainly
don't think
not.
I don't think he was actively saying like, oh, we need to get a Terminator killer like out there like in time for that movie. I think it just was a little bit of parallel thinking.
Yeah.
But we have not actually finished the Transfer series yet. We've done the first 3.
Okay.
And then now we get to jump back into this one. And yeah, there's definitely like a bit of a dip in quality when it goes over to Full Moon, just because, you know, they had less of a budget and things like that. And they wound up shedding a lot of cast members. So it was fun to go back into the Empire era for this little side story. This movie really feels like a dry run for like a Trancers TV show. It feels like it's making an argument for like, oh yeah, we can do like a Monster of the Week kind of thing with the Trancers universe.
Well, we're recording this, and you know, this will be about 5 to 6 weeks before it airs. There have been talks, I don't know to what extent they are, in production of some kind of serialized Trancers series. That is apparently a thing. I'm assuming it's still greenlit. If somebody knows the progress of that, obviously, you know, email us or reach out to us and let us know, because when I heard that was happening, I was super excited to hear about that, because yeah, if this succeeds in any real way, is it shows us that like the weekly adventures of Jack Death is something that I want.
Yeah.
And like this would have total, I mean, you know, you get the neo-noir element in there, which I love, and sci-fi silliness, and the ability to create absurd rules and things like that, and even expand on the universe and lore. But you can Briscoe County Jr. the fuck out of this, or
you
like
absolutely can.
Hercules, or you know, like there's just a syndicated show where like each week there's some kind. I mean, we've done serialized sci-fi shows that have time travel elements and stuff in them, and I think, you know, your Quantum's Leap and Sliders and stuff like that, and those shows, you know, when you have such a grand premise, I think there's so much fun that can be had. And when you have somebody who is as charismatic as Tim Thomerson in the lead, with a character like Jack Depp, who's playing everything kind of big and broad and harkening back to, you know, like a 40s Private Eye in how he's playing this, like just give me all of it. I want all of it. I want 8 seasons, like 150 episodes.
And yeah, they spell it out like pretty cleanly in the dialogue, or rather clumsily. They kind of catch you up on everything you need to know. It's like, oh, what am I supposed to do? I'm a future cop living in the modern day LA with my girlfriend. Like and we run a detective agency. Like he spells out everything that they're doing right at the top. But the basic premise of this is that one of Jack Death's old nemesis from the far distant future has broken out of jail and time traveled back to try and assassinate him. You know, so pretty self-contained little story, but it's nice that we get a little bit of Art LaFleur and Thelma Hopkins in the future. Grace Zabriskie from Twin Peaks joins the cast here. She was not in the original, I don't think. Did she come back for any others? I don't believe so.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think this is the one time that we see her.
She rules. Just one of the great like faces in film. She just has an unbelievable face. Just so she doesn't look like anybody else. I really like Grace Zabriskie.
I don't know if I said this when we did the episode on the first Trancers, but I always thought it was really weird that I had, as like a 9 or 10-year-old kid, I had a crush that I couldn't really understand on Thelma Hopkins. Like I used to just be like, watch Family Matters and be like, I'm into Aunt Rachel.
Hey.
But I don't really know. Like, yeah, it was just one of those weird things. Like I just was like, oh, and I've always been a fan because of that. And so seeing her pop up in this is fun too. And I think this it plays so much more like a second episode after a pilot of a serialized show. It's like we kind of, all right, we're getting right back into the thick of it. We don't have to do as much of the full exposition. But I'll tell you, two people who did not like this, Tim Thomerson and Helen Hunt.
This one?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Tim Thomerson famously was like, okay, well, that's kind of lost to time, and honestly, I hope no one sees it. And Helen Hunt also allegedly was unhappy with her physical appearance in this.
Hmm.
And so she said, I don't like the way I look in that movie. I hope that it never sees the light of day. And
I will say
Tim
she does
Thomer, oh,
not
good.
seem very excited to be in this. And I want to be diplomatic on that because like I think she's wonderful in these movies. She shows up in these, she comes back to these movies longer than you would think. Like she's up in
Yeah.
it up to Trancers 3. And Trancers 3, like Mad About You was already on TV. Like she was already kind of a big name at that point. So it was just kind of a cool thing of her to do, to come back for that and do a little cameo. But yeah, she does not seem to be super psyched to be here for this one. Thomerson's pretty locked in, but I mean, I think he's always had a pretty good sense of who this character is, you know, and I think it's just basically himself. So I think he's having a little fun with this character. But this is a fairly insubstantial little side story. Like I think this makes a good argument for a serialized kind of transfer story, but I feel like this would be kind of a filler episode if you were doing like a longer show. The stakes never really feel that defined. There's kind of this like subplot involving an attractive woman who shows up in the hallway and kind of like needs some help, and we're meant to think that this is the body that the assassin has jumped into, and then it turns out it's not. It's just a weird like random street guy who neither him nor the woman were credited in this movie, I believe. Like I don't know who is playing these two. And maybe that's just kind of lost to time, but I could just be like,
No, the only other person besides Helen Hunt and Tim Thomerson and Thelma Hopkins and Art LaFleur and them who's credited is the actress who plays Eldon Shock, or Edlin Shock.
Edlin Shock, Velvet Rhodes.
Great name.
What a name, yeah.
Edlin
Cool
Shock,
name, yeah.
cool character name. Velvet
character.
Rose, cooler actor name.
Cooler actor name, yeah. Yeah, she's an interesting person. She was a like sex worker, adult actress, and also just kind of a active proponent for like sex worker rights, and like was very outspoken and wrote a lot about it was fairly ahead of her time in that regard, because I think she was kind of coming up in that scene when it was still very taboo and very like, you know, you just like don't talk about it. If you do it, you don't admit to it, stuff like that, you know. So she was she seemed like she was pretty cool. She died in 2020, unfortunately, but yeah, that's kind of about it for the whole cast there, and I'm curious why the others didn't really get a shout out. But
well,
yeah,
this movie is also weirdly it's been documented, but in ways that are conflicting. Like Tim Thomerson, in addition to not liking this, also claimed that Bilson and DeMeo only partially wrote it and were not responsible for the Edlin Shock character.
right.
In the script, he basically said, oh, you know, by the time we were doing this, they were already writing The Rocketeer and trying to get that sold. And so I think he implies maybe that the character was something that was developed after the fact, and both Bilson and DeMeo are like, no, that's not true. Like we did that. Like we were, that he is correct that we were writing The Rocketeer, but no, we did in fact direct or write that character in it. And so again, sometimes there are certain projects and things where people's memories might be a little fuzzy. And so I'm thinking like maybe to Tim Thomerson, this whole thing was sort of an afterthought. Like he maybe doesn't even, how his recollection of this is a bit flawed.
Yeah, this whole thing, I will say, it feels it's got a weird vibe to it. I feel like the tone of it is a little interesting, which maybe is why everybody wasn't like super enthused with it. It almost feels sitcom-y.
Yeah,
a little bit. Like you expect, like when the 13-year-old girl shows up and figure out who it, like, oh, that's McNulty. It's like you kind of feel like there should be a laugh track like in the background, like, oh, that's the relative he had to like transport in to get it. It's a 13-year-old girl. That's so silly. And
Francis is filmed before a live studio audience.
Yeah.
And so I do think the tone of it is a little weird. I still like it. It's still really fun. It's still fun to see all these characters together and to get this really self-contained little one-off storyline with them to catch them up in between the first two films. But it does feel like maybe not everybody was super enthusiastic or had a lot emotionally invested in this project. It doesn't feel like a passion project by any means.
And where like Evil Clergyman kind of benefited from the lo-fi sort of underground tape sort of aesthetic, this movie, I think you want it to be a little better lit. You want it to be a little more clear. A lot of it takes place in kind of like a dim looking apartment. And I feel like you're missing some of that scope. Even the stuff when they go back to the future doesn't feel like it's really popping in the way that those futuristic sets did.
You're missing all the neons and stuff from that first movie. I mean, the first movie has is art directed and shot and lit in a way that's really purposeful. And this is I mean, I'm trying to think of off the top of my head examples where you had serialized TV versions of theatrically released movies and you automatically see that difference in quality. Like I know there's been examples of this where the movie is like incredibly cinematic. Oh, I mean, actually, you know what, to pull an example that's already been discussed or at least introduced, the Freddy's Nightmares versus like A Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's a lot of the elements of what you like are there. I mean, seeing Robert Englund in costume is kind of worth the price of admission already.
Of course, yeah.
But then, you're seeing something that reads so much more limited and so much cheaper than, a movie like any of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, but I'll say of the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Streets, where they're pretty like well shot and very purposefully designed, and they're so cinematic in a lot of ways. And then it's like we hadn't yet figured out how to make TV cinematic. Like the drop from a movie to then episodic television is so evident in quality. And I feel like that's what you get here. Like this does very much feel, you're absolutely right, Rachel, like a Trancers sitcom in a lot of ways, which, not saying I wouldn't appreciate a Trancers sitcom. Like we've talked about this with Oblivion too. I don't know how familiar you are with the 2 Oblivion movies, but the Sam Irvin early 90s Oblivion, not the more popular science fiction franchise.
The newer one,
the Tom Cruise, produced by Charles Band. He really kind of went for it on that one. Amazing what they were able to get done for $80,000.
I mean, you saw like a year and a half ago what they were able to do with Metal Storm. So
exactly. I mean, I think maybe had we finished the Trancers series, were we done with it? If we didn't have any more like Trancers coming out, I probably would be a little bit more excited to see this. For us, like we still have some undiscovered Trancers stuff that we're still gonna like get into. But I think if you're a fan of the series, it's functionally dead by this point. Like Trancers 6 doesn't even have Tim Thomerson. It's just kind of like a totally strange, like one-off kind of thing that nobody really liked. So this would be pretty fun if you're a fan of the series and like wanting some more of this content, to have this little like nugget pulled up. It's of a pretty low quality, even compared to like the Evil Clergyman. I think the restoration is just not really there. I don't sense a whole lot of enthusiasm behind it. But it's a fun little curio, and I think Pulse Pounders in general, like this whole little project, is a really fun little curio. I love stories about like lost films. I love lost films that like get miraculously recovered or found in an old dirty box. Like, you mentioned New York Ninja. I think that's a perfect example of like what you can really do and a really creative way to approach this. And I would love to see. I don't know. I'm glad that these exist. I'm glad that they were found and that they were recovered. And even if they're not like my favorite things that we've ever covered on the show, I am glad that they're out there now.
Our fans are very excited for when we break format to cover the day the clown cried.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to do that episode. Everybody's excited for that one.
Yeah, I love situations like this. I love the work that people do to release some of this stuff. Like there's the whole labels out there, like Vinegar Syndrome,
Yeah.
and just the fact that they're out there finding these movies, restoring these movies, giving them the attention, making them fancy, because people love fancy stuff. But I think that just helps sell them. And I have found and been exposed to so many fun movies because of that I never would have seen, and like no major label is ever going to release.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, if you're a completionist, like I find myself to be a completionist in a lot of ways. And it's like, oh, there's this whatever directed by somebody I haven't seen. Well, I have to watch it. And so for me, like having like a movie where you've got like a reanimator cast in it that I'm not familiar with, like a Barbara Crampton movie I haven't seen, like give it to me now. Like I have to see this. And especially young, like this is when they're in it. This is when they're doing those films that like I love so much. So it's such a cool thing to see. And it would be just such a loss if for some reason this had never been pulled out from, I don't know, behind whatever brick it was hidden in. Charles Banda's castle, where they found it like randomly one day doing some remodeling. Like that would be tragic if this had never come to see the light of day. So it's so cool that all these years later, because this is fairly recently they found this, right? Like 2013 or whatever, 2011. Like I don't care if it's not that great. I still think it's an interesting piece of history for these kind of films and these actors and these stories that definitely deserves to be released and to be seen. I mean, they're 25 minutes. Like, come on. It's not a big investment to watch.
This is not going to ruin your day to watch either. This is
no. And when they were introduced to the public, they were at Flashback Weekend in 2012 and 2013. And that's a fun aspect of it too, because it's like the movies with these people in it, whether we're talking about Barbara and Jeffrey or whether we're talking about Tim Thomerson and Trancers as a property, these are properties and ensembles of actors that people really love. And so that then creates some buzz around the convention too. It's like, okay, well, it's Flashback Weekend in 2012. Oh, Charles Band has this completely lost to time thing that was filmed 25 years ago, that there's this VHS work print of with Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs, and it's a Lovecraft like people are going to be buzzing to see something like that too. So just the way that they were able to then get it out to people is super fun. I mean, it's unfortunate that this is always going to be incomplete, because it really doesn't seem like there's ever going to be a way that, and I'm also curious about the wraparound stuff. Like I'm curious what that
would have been.
Yeah, how would you possibly have connected these three stories? Like I would be very intrigued to hear, because even though we don't know anything about the Dungeon Master segment, like what thread is uniting these three stories? Would love to hear what the discussion around that, because I don't know what brings these three stories together.
Well, see, what it is it's Satan and God, and they're on a train car together, and they're talking about the fates of certain people. I made three people really happy referencing Night Train to Terror there.
You sure did. I mean, the last thing I will say about it is just that, like, this is interesting to look at in terms of Charles Band's career overall, because by the time he gets to Full Moon, like the showman side of him is really like the huckster, the hustler, the guy who's always like trying to sell this kind of vision, and this kind of unified kind of universe that he's creating. This is sort of an early stab at that. This is like, oh yeah, these are going to be kind of basically like Marvel What If versions of some of our properties that we like. So this is, we're bringing Trancers back, like, and this is and Dungeon Master, and like, it's a fun kind of step on his way to being like the carny huckster that we all love, And I
there's nothing that Charles Band loves more than the idea of world building.
Yes. He doesn't fully commit to that every time, but I do appreciate that he has the idea of it. But either way, this was a really fun one to dig into. And Rachel, thank you so much for being here and for dusting these off for us.
I thought, we've referred to this movie now for the third or fourth time as a curious nugget. And
Mhm.
one thing that I do know about you, Rachel, from your social media and also from your work on Halloweenies and other podcasts and writing, is that you're a big vinyl head,
I am, yes.
which is awesome because I personally like putting, sort of an offbeat record collection together. I'm not going to sit here and say that my collection in terms of quantity is anything super crazy. I grew up in a household with a record collector father. My dad worked in the music industry, and he spent a lot of years where he was digitizing like old 78s and
Oh,
records that
cool.
were, yeah, the stuff that wasn't available digitally. And he was doing, we had one of those like DAT transfer machines in my house. And he used
Yeah.
to, I mean, he had a collection of about 15,000, I think, at one point.
God.
I live in New York City. I do not have the space for such a collection, but I do anytime I'm out or anytime I get a chance to go to a record store, I love to look at what's there. And I've been putting together a collection of kind of weird stuff. Like, to me, having music that is easily streamable on vinyl isn't always appealing. Like, the no dig against this particular album, but like a lot of times you'll go in stores that happen to also have records for some reason, like an Urban Outfitters or something,
Yeah.
and they'll have like Rumors on vinyl, and it's like 180-gram vinyl of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. And I'm like, I don't need to own Rumors on vinyl.
Mhm.
Everyone in the world had that album 45 years ago. Like, I'm looking for a little bit more niche weird stuff. So I asked you beforehand and I asked Steve beforehand just to pull a couple records from our collection so we can just sort of, um, compare and talk a little bit about. So I'm very curious with only that direction. Rachel, show me one of the records you brought over to this recording.
Yeah, sure. I didn't I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I didn't put a lot of thought into this because if I did, I would be overthinking this forever. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay,
Understandable.
I'm just gonna pull stuff from my sort of to be shelved, recently played, recently purchased stack, that's like sitting there that hasn't
Mhm.
quite been properly organized into the rest of the collection yet. So I pulled from there because that gave me some sort of boundary within to work in. So let's see. Yeah, because I similarly I worked at a record store or record stores for a little over 15 years. And so I also didn't necessarily always like I don't own a ton of stuff that is super easily accessible
Right.
for the same reason. It's like, oh, I have access to it all the time. I can listen to it in the store, whatever. So my collection is just a lot of really weird things that I feel like I want to save. I want to treasure. I want to have at my, beck and call at any moment, but isn't necessarily something super common that you could find. Like, yeah, I don't own any Fleetwood Mac. I can say that.
Yeah.
So first thing, I just bought this last week at the record store I used to work at, the Record Exchange in Boise. The Planet of the Apes, the original soundtrack.
Amazing. Oh, look at that cover. That's so
Beautiful.
cool.
Yeah, which I didn't have for some reason, just hadn't come across it. I'm a big fan of just the hunt, like of course you can go out on Discogs and there are things like, believe me, I've spent more than enough money on Discogs, like buying stuff that I'm actually hunting down, but I also just like seeing what comes across my path
It's
and
fun.
picking it up at that time. Yeah. So Jerry Goldsmith's Planet of the Apes is my first pick. And just, I mean, a classic in every sense of the word. The movie, the music, composer, the cast, everything just incredible. So was very excited to find that one. And
Oh, that's such a good one.
it's Goldsmith. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
can never go wrong with Goldsmith.
No.
I'm really curious what Steve pulled over because there's a record that I know Steve and I both have. There's a handful that Steve and I know we both have.
Yeah, we
But
have a
I'm
couple of
curious, but go ahead.
Probably you've seen this one, Jared, but this is the most obscure thing I think I have in my record collection, and that is the soundtrack to John Fasano's Black Roses from 1989.
Yeah.
I had to really, really search around for this one. I
Mhm.
did ultimately go on eBay to find it because I just think the odds of finding this one in the wild are startlingly low. But I think it's a genuinely good soundtrack. It's like the
rules.
fictional demon band in this movie is so good, and I've just been like stumping for this movie for a long time. So I
Yeah.
was really happy to find
I've been
that.
I've been trying to wait until I find that one in the wild, and it really hasn't happened yet. So of all the stuff I have, I don't have that one, but I actually really want it.
Yeah.
But I do have, and Steve also has one because I bought one for him as a gift to Assault of the Killer Bimbos
There
on,
it is.
on vinyl, which is an Empire Pictures release, a movie that's a lot of fun and has a couple of like truly great late 80s pop songs on it. But just, this is one of those things, just to have this and just to be like, it's obscure. First of all, it's like different levels of inception of obscurity. It's like, it's obscure to know the movie. It's obscure to own the movie. It's even more obscure to own the soundtrack record to the movie.
That's the sweet spot. That's where you want.
Oh yeah. What else did you bring, Rachel?
Okay, so I also brought because I knew I was coming on here, I was like, well, I have to bring like something related. So I brought the Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich
Oh, cool.
soundtrack. Fabio Frizzi, who I adore and love, like everything he does. I'm a huge fan of just Italian giallo. I mean, just Italian scores in general. It doesn't matter. They're always amazing.
Yeah.
And this is another one that is just so fun and so good. And it's a more recent one.
Yeah.
But also kind of a weird nugget, I'm sure, in the Puppet Master kind of franchise and the release and everything about that. So it was just another thing. It's like, I can't believe they released this on vinyl, but I'm very happy they did.
Yeah, I don't have that one, but I've actually been somewhere where I had it in my hand and I ended up putting it back and not getting it. But I will eventually get there because it's Fabio Frizzi and it's awesome. Steve, what else did you get?
Well, I brought one of my low-key favorite soundtracks to a movie that I think people forget about all the time. But this was released by Mondo, I think, last year. It's a really nice-looking print, and it is Tom Hanks's "That Thing You Do," a movie I never get tired of. It's just like kind of one of my ultimate sort of like background comfort movies. Like it's something kind of miraculous about this title song, which is that like you should get so sick of that song by the end of the movie. It should be such an irritating little earworm, and it is an earworm, but like you never actually get sick of hearing it. And so I had to buy the vinyl. It's a really lovely gatefold, really lovely splatter print like vinyl on there. So yeah, That Thing You Do. Love it.
Well, I never get tired of Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters.
Oh, never. Absolutely. Yeah. I think there is a track. Yeah. And they have all. They credit Shrimp Shack to Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters. Yeah. Time to Blow by Del Paxton. That's on here. Yeah.
Oh, Del Paxton. Yeah. That's
Diane Dane. Yeah. All of the whole stuff. Yeah. Yeah. All these.
That's a good
bands.
one. I did. What's funny is that's something where I'm always like, the music in this movie is really good, and I never thought to seek that out.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, you'd love it.
What I'm holding in my hand right now is a prized possession of mine because it's autographed, but it is the vinyl soundtrack of Linnea Quigley's Horror Workout.
Love
right
it.
There. Right
there.
Well,
yeah.
I haven't even opened mine. I cherish it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not much of a story there other than that. My wife got that for me for a gift for my birthday or something a couple years ago, and it was lucky enough to get it signed by Linnea Quigley, and it was awesome because I feel like people get posters or VHS stuff signed, and I feel like a good portion of stuff she signs is for Return of the Living Dead. And when I pulled this record out for her to sign, she was like, "Oh hell yeah!"
Yeah,
like she did sign my Return of the Living Dead record.
Hell yes, yeah.
She signed mine also, and I didn't bring that in as one of them. We'll do a third one, Rachel, if you've got it. What else have you got?
Oh yeah, I've got. I could go on for days. So I guess the last one that I'm gonna pick. This was one I found that. See, it always helps to have friends who still work at a record store, because then they text you and they're like, "Hey, you want this?" I'm like, yes, immediately. And that was the Grizzly soundtrack.
Great.
Oh man.
Yeah, Robert O. Ragland is the composer, and I mean, this movie is amazing, but also, I mean, the score for it is actually really beautiful. It's a beautiful giant orchestral traditional score, and it's one of those things that's like very of the time, feels very 70s, but in the best way. And it's one of those things where you listen to it and you're like, this is so much better than the movie deserves, but it elevates it in so many ways because it's just an actually amazing score. So very excited.
That's really fun.
That. Yeah,
that's a good one. Steve, what else are you holding?
I'm going to bring up the one that kind of helped kick off my recent kind of refixation in vinyl. I've kind of waxed and waned in my collecting over the years, but I found this. It was not, but now it is.
I love it.
But I found this one in a Value Village, and I just kind of like, it was $2, so I just had to snap it up, and like I bought this, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to buy a record player, so I did that immediately after. It's a soundtrack to one of my favorite movies of all time, Nashville. Robert Altman's Nashville. Does a thing that I wish more movies did, which is that every actor in this movie had to write and perform their own music. That was like part of their homework, part of their character building, is that they need to write their own songs and sing them all themselves. And they're fantastic. And yeah, it's just it's a great listen. And yeah, see that movie if you haven't seen that movie. It's one of the best ever made.
No, that's a really good pick too. See, Steve, yours. I'm glad you're here to sort of balance the scales for us a little bit.
I figured you were going to be bringing the horror ones. I have them here as well. But
my honorable mentions are the Slumber Party Massacre.
Great.
Gary Cohen, not to be confused with Larry Cohen's Video Violence, which has a really amazing gatefold, actually, also. But I'll say my third one is one that I'm really happy to have, because, like Rachel said, for sometimes you encounter a movie where even if the movie is fun, the score transcends the movie, and James Calabrese and Ken Higgins composed really terrific music to my most recent record purchase, which is Spooky.
Of course.
Oh, so much better than the movie. Yeah. Definitely elevates the movie.
The music rules. And it's, it's a fun pink kind of translucent vinyl. It's got another great gatefold and a sleeve that came with it. And it's just one of those things. I'm proud to have that in my kind of oddball collection of records of things. I sent a picture of that to one of my friends when I got it, and he was just like, you have to be like the only person who has that.
I have it too. You're not alone.
Oh, good. Okay, there you go.
Your tepid response made me think that maybe that was one you had not encountered.
Oh no, I have that one as well. Yeah, I have an unhealthy amount. I've thought about that. I'm like, at some point in time, somebody's gonna have to deal with this, and they're gonna be like, what was this lady's problem? Because I also I have an affinity for buying. So I love Charles Bronson, and he was huge in Japan in his heyday. And he's not the only one, but there's a very large amount of very interesting Japanese releases, whether it was Steve McQueen or Alain Delon, where they would release records of just random songs pulled from their movies.
Oh.
And kind of like Teen Beat style, they'd just put pictures of these male celebrities on these records and then release them. All, I'm sure, completely unofficial, completely illegal sort of releases, but it was a different time, and I love tracking those down. And it's just why do I have all of these? I don't know, because I just am fascinated by the fact that these exist, and now I have to own them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
hey, little kid, tell your mom to buy you the record of Mr. Majestic.
Oh my God, one of my faves. He just wants to, harvest his melons.
A pretty good movie that I saw for the first time not too long ago. I feel like that's the one that jumped in my head. But this is a dangerous path to go down.
Yeah,
so,
we're
Steve,
gonna fall right down the rabbit hole.
Jump in here and help us put a fine point on all of this.
I will wrest these vinyls away from you so that we don't fall down the hole forever. But Rachel, it's been delightful to have you. Where can people find all of your stuff?
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. You can find me online. I'm on Instagram at The Vinyl Girl, GRRRL. And then you can also tune in, listen to me on the Halloweenies. We've been covering the Universal Monsters franchise this entire year. And by the time this comes out, I believe we'll be in the realm of The Bride of Frankenstein. And that is very exciting. But yeah, we've covered them all up to this point. And The Bride is our last monster that we'll be covering. So I'm very excited to get into that. And then over on Losers Club, all summer we've been covering The Stand. So if you're a Stand head, all sorts of content related to The Stand, everything related to The Stand. So that's been also a lot of fun. And I also host a podcast with my friend Jen called The Girls on the Boys, where we cover the Amazon series The Boys. And there are in between seasons. So right now we've also been covering the TV show Banshee, starring Anthony Starr, which is what he did before he became Homelander. And that was a Cinemax show that was in the, kind of early 2000s, and it's fucking wild. So if you're a fan of Anthony Starr and just want some sort of sleazy TV show to watch, it's on HBO. You can see it. And we've been covering that over there as well.
I've always heard Banshee is kind of like an underseen little gem. I've never gotten around.
It is.
So yeah, that's cool to see.
It's very odd, very fun. And from the same writers that would go on to do the TV show Warrior, if people are familiar with that, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, cool show.
Based on an idea that Bruce Lee came up with and his daughter finally helped realize. So if also a total show that's worth watching if you're a fan of Bruce Lee kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Awesome. Well, there's lots of ways for you to hear Rachel on different shows or to check out things that she's writing or talking about. And I'm sure you're going to find something that you enjoy. If you enjoy what we do on the show week to week, the best way to show us is to drop a little 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. If you're on one of the podcast catchers that has, a way to rate and review the show, please do. It's just really helpful to help us get the word out there for more people and get more eyes on the podcast. If you want to keep up with what we're doing kind of on the daily, the best way to do that is Instagram. You can follow us at puppetmasters_castle freaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared or Steve at Minotaur Matador. We update on Threads and Blue Sky. We have a Facebook group for the show. We also have audio versions of the show on YouTube as well on our channel. So there's lots of ways that you can hear our lovely voices. But this isn't the only show in which you can hear Steve's lovely voice. So Steve, what else would you like to plug?
Well, thank you. I'm also on a show called Cinema Arcade, which is cinema and arcade mashed together. That is what we do. We are watching movies and playing the video games based on those movies. As of this recording, I believe you're about to hear us get into. Oh yeah, no, we did. We're just now jumping into our October, which is all horror movies, all month long. Going to be a lot of fun. We got a couple of major bangers there, but we have more than 100 episodes of that to go back through. If you're interested, if likely we have covered your favorite movie at some point. We get to cover a nice wide range. So. Very cool show. Check us out and be sure to check us out next week because we are going to be talking about a movie called Catacombs from 1988, sometimes called Curse 4, even though I don't think it is actually related to any of the previous Curse movies. And those are my favorite kind of low budget movies when they're just retitled a movie they have nothing to do with.
Love that.
Yeah, I love it. So we're going to try and dig this one up. This one's kind of a little hard to find. So we're going to see.
Yeah, we were getting a little complacent. It was like, these movies are too easy to find. We need to do a couple of weeks in a row where we really need to dig and maybe, go through some outside of legal ways to obtain said movies.
Yeah.
It was a little too easy for us for a while there. We wanted to give ourselves a little work just to keep us fresh and keep us hungry to be doing these shows and bringing you all of this content. So yeah, thank you again to Rachel for taking the time. Definitely go check out all of her stuff that she mentioned when she was plugging her socials. Be sure to check out Cinema Arcade and be sure to be here next week for Catacombs, aka First I almost said First Core.
Curse
4. Is it The Ultimate Sacrifice? Is that the subtitle on it?
So yeah.
Not to be confused with The Final Sacrifice.
No, very different. Yes.
No. Less Rousdower in this movie.